Well, I'm super excited today. I've got my very good friend, Todd Christiansen, here from Strategic Projects, my oil and gas expert today. I'm super pumped. Welcome to another episode of our Workplace Realities podcast. Todd, what are we going to talk about today?
Well, first of all, thanks for the introduction. As far as being an expert, I think you should have shot a little bit higher. But I'm real happy to be here and talk to you about this stuff. There has been a lot of changes in the oil and gas industry, so I'm
Mm.
also eager to hear your viewpoints on that from your industry and what you're seeing in there versus what we're seeing. So it
Oh,
should be a
yeah.
good conversation
Well, you know what? That's all it is just a conversation. You and I have them offline all the time.
all the time
Hang out sometimes after hours,
after hours.
during events, and we have a great time together. So
Exactly.
just a conversation today to let people know what we think's happening out there. If we have any answers at all, I'm hoping you have them because I am super confused. This oil and gas market, prices are super high. But what does that mean? Usually we have lots of hiring and lots of stuff. You tell me, what do you think's going on?
Yeah, I think that is a perfect support of what we've seen the industry change over the last decade. So going back to 2014, 2016, when there was a lot of oil instability with pricing and a bit of a crash, companies changed how they go about doing their business. And partly because they had to,
Hmm?
but also because the markets dictated they had to. So the capital markets weren't as forgiving anymore. They weren't really into the ups and downs of the oil and gas anymore. And investors weren't as resilient, I guess, is the word to use for the high potential gains versus the high potential losses. So companies now are more focused on cash flow and giving dividends back to their investors versus like real busy growth as you're referring to. And I totally agree with what you're saying. Uh,
It's bizarre, I have to say, because I've been around, as you know, for 30 years, and I've seen it all. And usually, when we see that the unemployment rate is where it's at today, and the oil prices are, as high as or almost as high as what they are now, they've already gone through the layoffs, and the oil companies have gone through the layoffs, and they've really they went lean, and then it gets to where it is today, and they should be ramping up. They should be, and my end of it, hiring people. We should have a whole slew of new roles coming in. But that's not what I'm actually hearing. It's tight. They've got profits, do they not?
For sure. And I think the companies have really conditioned themselves about efficiency. So I think
Mhm.
that's a real key thing that they've found over the last decade. And some of that is through their own processes, and a lot of it is through technology has helped
Oh.
fuel that as well.
And is that mostly like AI kind of stuff, or is that more technology that the businesses are buying internally? Are they creating their own? What's happening there?
So AI is definitely part of it, and automation in itself has helped them monitor their operations better and realize some cost savings out of that.
Okay.
Uh, but technology, I'm referring to drilling technology. So
Uh,
downhole,
mhm.
they're able to drill big, long horizontal laterals now. So there's just not as many physical holes being drilled anymore because they can access a longer reach.
Oh.
How they go about their field developments now has changed. It used to be done on a single well pad basis about a decade ago, maybe a little longer. But now it's not uncommon to see 8, 10, 12, 16 well, large multi-well pads being drilled,
Hmm.
which if you see how that filters down to the work, um, you know, right from the construction, there's not as many pads being constructed, there's not as many
Well.
pipelines being constructed. The facilities, albeit larger, are there's just not as much of it or equipment required to be done. Again, larger, but not more. So I think that's part of it. And as far as, yeah, profitability, I think we see that through the market.
Like
Some
through
of those
investments, you
through
mean?
investments.
Or okay.
Yeah, through
Okay.
investments, you see a lot of the larger successful companies with healthy dividends. So
Yeah.
everybody's really excited to invest in them, and that's kind of the model they're going after.
And the investment money, the dividends then, are they staying here? I mean, we want, obviously, Alberta to boom. That's what we're all about here, and then that spreads across the country. But, Do you think that the dividends are really staying in our province? Are they being shipped out? Or most of the investors from out of country? Wow, that's what I heard, but I mean, I'm not the expert. I don't
That's
know.
that's a great question and probably out of my wheelhouse. I mean,
Fair.
definitely there is foreign investment, so I think that it's likely that some of those funds are leaving our province or Western Canada, but
Mm.
there are also a lot of individual investors as well that realize the profits of these businesses as well.
Well, you're one of the most positive guys that I know, that's for sure. I know we hang out, we chat about it. I'm the negative one and saying, oh, gloom and doom. Here we go again. You're the positive guy, and you're always about what's next, and you're excited about the next thing. And what do you think the next maybe 3 months looks like? 6 months, or do you even have any idea? I certainly don't have any idea.
Yeah,
What are your thoughts?
yeah, that's a pretty murky crystal ball, I think,
Yeah.
for anybody. Uh,
Oil price up, oil price down.
Yeah, and I think there's just a lot of factors going on in our world right now that dictate some of that too. So,
Mhm.
we look at our own, uh, be it provincial and federal government policy and how that influences the oil and gas industry by being carbon policy. Something that's had a big shift over the years, over the last decade too, is provincial regulations around liability management, with
Mhm.
companies having to be responsible for cleaning up their old wells and pipelines. And I think there was even a recent example in the news about a rather large bill that was left to the Orphan Well Fund, of a company that was went to receivership, I believe. So all those
Yeah.
things play a factor on top of what's going on worldwide politically. Obviously, we're having upcoming trade negotiations with our neighbors to the south, which could play a factor in some of this.
Do you think that'll impact you and your business as well?
I think it's going to impact everybody. I think what comes out of that agreement and how that moves forward through the negotiations, I don't know where that's all going to end up. To be honest, we can see that that's starting to percolate a little bit as we head into July, where they're talking to
Mhm.
start doing some negotiations. But I think that it's probably going to affect everybody on some level.
Right. Right. I wish we had all had a crystal ball.
Yes.
Now, I used to have one in my office. It wasn't real. It didn't work. So
You mean Magic 8 Ball? Magic 8 Ball. That's the one I got.
you got the magic
Yes.
8 ball.
Yes.
I never got one of those. It was
Yeah, it's
an
great.
actual crystal ball
It
because
always
people
gives you a great answer.
think I could see. Yeah. What was the answer? 8? No? Yes?
Yes.
Something like
Do
that,
it.
right? Do
Don't
it.
do it.
Don't do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. It's all a wild guesswork when you
It
own your own
is.
business. That's for sure. Well, let's talk about some of the changes maybe that you've also seen over the last, how long have you been in business? You've
Uh,
been in for a long time.
Yeah, so we get started our business in one form back in 2012, which
Oh.
actually was,
Oh,
for the
no.
most part, myself as a independent consultant and just relying on prior relationships with different
Oh.
discipline engineers and support people to do projects, and that eventually grew to where we are today.
Which
Uh,
is amazing. You've done
it's
very well.
it's been good, and it's been enjoyable. The business side, we have a lot of great people in our organization, and obviously learned a lot along the way too, as any entrepreneur does.
And you're an Alberta boy.
Yes, Alberta boy. I'm rare.
Amazing.
I'm
Yes,
very
you
rare.
are. You are. In many ways.
Yeah.
Just
Okay.
kidding.
Okay. Okay.
Well, that's great. And so do you think, you've never been in this position before where the world is, we've had it. We've had all kinds of ups and downs in our economy. We've had wars and we've had floods. You started just before the flood. How was that?
Yeah. Well,
Oh my gosh.
yeah, it was a thing, right? But I think, like, back to your question about, there's just so many different fronts now that seem to be providing challenges. We just touched on a few of them: domestic regulation, federal regulation.
Mhm.
We have a shift, I would say, in the world economy with what's going on down south and how that all works with the global economy.
Mhm.
Obviously, there's some conflict going on in the world that is influencing the oil and gas industry, and although that hopefully gets resolved soon, that definitely has an impact and will for probably quite some time.
Are you
Um,
one of those guys that watches the news every morning to see where the oil prices are at and where the wars are at?
I try not to.
Oh,
Well, I really try not to because it can be a bit of a rabbit hole,
yeah.
and it changes so quickly too. So obviously, we all have to be informed
Mhm.
to the best that we can, but I try not to over focus on that stuff.
Yeah, are there any big job changes that you've seen, like the types of jobs that you've seen that were hiring when you were, working for other people before, or when you started your own company in 2012? Do you think that there's going to be a boom type of job? Do you think that there's a job that used to be around that may come back, or is there a job that you have has just died off?
Yeah, I think that there's been different jobs that certainly have shifted with technology and what kind of what we've talked about, and not only just the job scope, but the amount of those jobs available to be had as well. So
Hmm.
and an
Less,
example, yeah, less of them, right? So,
yeah.
and I think of back to my comment about technology shifting and pad development and gathering systems being built in the field as we know it with conventional oil and gas. There's just fewer of the people required out there. There's fewer workers. There's fewer lead managers that are out in the field level, and I think that we see that just with the amount of service companies that are out there right now. So th- that has shrunk.
It has shrunk.
It has.
And are
So
they consolidating?
I think part of it's consolidation, and part of it is that the amount of work has dried up. That some of the maybe smaller companies just couldn't compete on that level.
Oh,
So
costs have gone up
costs have gone up with everything.
substantially.
I I used to deal specifically a lot in pipelines early in my career, so I keep in touch with a lot of the pipeline construction companies,
Mm,
et cetera. So, there's been a big shift in that. A lot of which I would have called very, very good pipeline contractors have sold out and shut their door. Um,
mm,
and a lot of it's to what you say, costs. So insurance costs, fuel costs, labor costs. And if in my conversations with those people, if they compare their rate structures back to 10 years ago, it really hasn't changed. So, their margin at the end of the day got so small that the risk they have to take it makes it difficult.
would you support someone new coming into the industry in some regard? If somebody came to you and said, "Hey, Todd, I'm thinking about, starting my own service company." What would you think of that? Would you say, "Yeah, yeah, go for it," or would you think maybe make sure you got a lot of money behind you in order to support what you're going to do here?
So that's a loaded question, and I need to take a minute to lead up to the answer to that. So, and that's part of the shift that we've seen since 2014. So, if we look back at the oil and gas industry prior to 2014, and when things were quite healthy, there was a cycle that happened over and over again. So the larger companies, they'd grow, 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 and they'd get to a point where they had assets that were marginal, that their internal cost maybe couldn't justify uh, continued operations of those. So that's where we'd get a lot of these small startup companies, guys getting together, private capital, throwing money together, and they go buy a group of wells off a larger company,
Mm,
operate them potentially even themselves, and then grow their business. And when they got to a certain size, the larger companies would purchase them. So
right.
that was that whole cycle we've seen for a very long time. After 2014, that area when we talked about available capital drying up, we talked about the rules and regulations from the provincial government around liability management.
Mm,
It's very difficult now for small companies to start up and go through that whole cycle. And with larger companies being more cash flow focused, and they've also become more efficient in their operations, the threshold for some of those marginal assets as they used to be is much higher. So
mm.
there's just not as much moving on the A&D side, which kind of fueled some of that. So actually, I read an interesting stat before I got here, which I found was quite interesting, and it was around A&D back in 2014 versus now.
Ah,
So
hmm.
acquisitions and divestitures back in 2014 accounted for 10% of the overall oil and gas industry market cap.
Oh.
and today it accounts for 3.
Ugh. Yeah.
So you can see that
Mm.
supports that narrative about just there's not that same cycle going on with small companies being able to grow their business and sell it to larger companies just because of the cost to entry and the cost to operate.
Yeah.
So back to
Barriers.
your question about would I support someone coming in and saying, "Hey, I'd like to start this business, get into it." It's very difficult. And I would say that, especially since a lot of the players that remain in the oil and gas industry, I would say are probably intermediate to senior level companies. They're very established. They have regimented requirements and
Mhm.
that they have for their contractors. So it can be difficult to kind of crack that
Yeah,
lineup,
crack
so to
that nut.
speak.
Uh, not to be facetious,
Yeah,
but crack the nut.
that's right.
We've seen where, the oil and gas companies used to go through the mass layoffs, tighten their belts, oil prices were low, they overspent, they needed to increase their dividends or whatever. And they would get rid of, lay off, terminate a whole round of people. I know, we did hear from a larger company today that they were gonna lay off 10,000 people. And they're doing the same kind of thing that oil and gas companies do. They lay them all off, and then they'd overlay off.
Hmm.
And they also would, maybe offer early retirement packages and things like that. So they would lay off the low the the low end of the totem pole. They would maybe do something different with the middle guys, shrink their hours, shrink their pay, shrink their benefits, shrink their pensions or whatever. And then the senior guys would all they would retire,
Right.
and it would leave an over layoff spot, an opening out there. Because once things picked up, like they are now with the pricing, at least with oil prices, um, they could have room to hire people, bring new people on. I'm not seeing that happening.
Hmm.
Obviously, the industry has changed altogether. They haven't overlaid off. People aren't quitting easily without worry.
Hmm.
There's a big shift going on there
Mhm.
as well. Where do you see that going for the workers out there? Do you see that there's going to be any kind of change or anything coming from that? I don't know where that's going to go. I've never seen it like this. I was expecting it to be, layoffs, hires. Nothing happened.
Yeah, I think that's back to that discussion around efficiency again, and I'm curious from you as well. Over the last several years, have you seen? And certainly recognizing back a decade ago or
Oh,
longer, like you'd see these massive layoffs,
yeah. Thousands of people.
thousands of people,
Yeah.
kind of riding the cycle of the typical oil and gas
Ah, it was always a
train.
year. You get a year package,
Yeah,
lucky them. Those don't exist anymore. So they would, they'd get a year layoff package, then they'd take EI for whatever another year or something. And so it was always a 2-year cycle.
yeah,
And I could expect that 2-year cycle to hit. And I haven't seen any of that happening. So it seems like it's quiet and flat
mm,
versus, big severance packages. There's that stuff's just not happening now. There's just no severance. It's very small termination packages. The employers got very careful because they overspent on the terminations before. Now it seems like it's just, they're just amalgamating, and very quietly things are shifting, and not in a good way. We're not having the mass layoffs, which can be good eventually,
right,
and we're not having the mass hires either.
correct.
It's just, technology, maybe some of the, online job boards, referrals, that kind of thing, but, I wasn't sure if there's anything there that you would have seen that would have been maybe different other than the technology side, what you're hearing in your networks.
Yeah, I think it comes back again to the shift of the focus of the businesses now. So,
Mhm.
uh, back when we would experience these huge price runs, we would see oil and gas companies running to drilling rigs. It's like I can't drill holes fast enough to try to chase the dollar.
Mm.
Now where it's more focused on operational efficiency. They're very, very focused on what's my cost per barrel of oil equivalent out of the ground. That's a
Mm.
major focus for I know a lot of our clients and what I hear in the industry. Um, abroad. So with that, they're already running really lean. So,
Yes.
and what we've seen in this last run up where we would have typically seen a lot of let's hit the ground running drilling,
Yeah.
maybe it's a focus on what can we do with some well optimization, facility optimization, so that we can realize those gains in production and oil flows immediately rather than having to go through a drill complete tie-in cycle, which could take, it could be a year with regulations, and they could have missed their window by then with the oil price. So
Mm,
I just
okay.
think it's a different approach than what we had seen in past years.
Yeah, I agree. I think we almost have to just buckle down and see what happens politically and economically and kind of ride the wave as long as we can anyway to see what's going to come next. Do you have anything big on the horizon for you and strategic projects? Anything you want to talk about?
Yeah, we deal in conventional oil and gas, again, supporting our clients with engineering services. So we do mechanical, civil, electrical design, pipelines, facilities. So very much in the conventional market. So we're like anyone else, and with the oil companies as well. As we see a change and things shifting, we got to shift with that. So we continue to look for ways to help our clients be more efficient, help
Fiscally
them support,
responsible.
yeah, right, and
Yeah.
support them in that quest and how they operate day to day. So we do that through incorporation of different technologies that are on there that we can incorporate into our designs. I think everybody is kind of starting to look at AI and how they integrate that into their businesses for efficiencies. So that's kind of the big shifts that we got going on.
Oh, I love it. Thank you so much. Just want to say too, I love your family. Got a beautiful
Thank you.
family.
You as well.
Thank you for inviting me to some of your other private events that you've
Thank you.
had, and I really appreciate being part of that.
Excellent.
Thank you so much for coming in today.
Thank you.
Luckily, we had some good weather for you to head
Oh,
down to the
it's
about
great.
staffing offices, so I appreciate
Exactly.
that. And thank you so much for being part of our podcast. And I think you're I don't know, we're under 10
Oh,
still.
well, there you
So
go.
there,
I'm
there
right
you
at the
go.
one of the maiden voyages. That's
You're
excellent.
one of
That's
my
excellent.
newbies.
That's excellent. No,
And I really appreciate your
this was
time
fun.
today. Thank you so much again for being a part today. And hopefully, we've addressed everything that I think we could today and being a part of workplace realities.
Thank you.